Hi, we have talked about evolution and natural selection with the assumption that species evolve in time. We have sometimes thought about one species that became two, just to recall, let's say, the separation between bonobos and chimpanzees. But we have never talked about a missing bit of information about the topic, that is, how a species become two. So, species are not made in an assembly line. Every species is particular and has its own history, but maybe today we could talk about some models we use in evolutionary biology in order to think about the species separation, about the event of speciation, the origin of a new species. And fun fact, Darwin, in his book Origin of Species, didn't talk about the origin of a species. So I find it kinda cool because today we know something about origin of species that Darwin didn't know. So let's look at it. In order to have a new species, from the assumptions of evolution, you have to consider a previous species, a previous one. So let's put our species here in this circular environment. For first, let's define what a species really is. We call species the group of organisms that could mate with each other and produce a fertile progeny. It means that humans and chimpanzees are different species because we can't mate with each other in order to make a baby chimpanzee human. So let's put some fertile animals in our environment. Let's put some tortoise. There are some clichés in evolutionary biology. In this kind of talk, the protagonists are always tortoise or birds. So, I wanted to make something original, but let's go with tortoise. We have put our tortoise in the environment and they are fertile with each other, they mate. It means that their genomes are shuffled over and over again while they are having sex. They will evolve together. Their cells will talk the same language because they are evolving in the same direction, and they are continually exchanging genetic material with each other while they are having sex. So you can imagine that they maintain themselves very genetically similar. And it's good because if they were genetically different, the spermatozoa from the male tortoise and the egg from the female tortoise could not talk, and they couldn't have a progeny. Now, this is a species. We have put it in the circular environment, and it stays like this for a time that depends upon a lot of parameters. But let's make this species to evolve in two different species with some mental experiment. Okay? There are two essential models used to think about speciation, the event of the birth of a new species. The first, allopatric speciation. It is the first just because it is conceptually simpler. Allopatric is just a mouthful word that comes from Latin, and it means of different place. Because now we see what happens if suddenly this circular environment, changes like this. Wild mountain chain appeared. Now we have divided our environment in two different places, the north and the south of the mountain chain. The allopatric concept. Now that our two populations of tortoise are divided, they can't mate. The north tortoise will not mate with the south tortoise, so if the sex between the two populations is stopped, the same is for the genetic flow. The DNA of the north tortoise will not be mixed with the DNA of the south tortoise. So finally, they are evolving separately. Maybe in the north there is a different environment than the south, so the evolutionary pressures are also different. After some years of isolated evolution, the north and the south tortoise are different in the way that they cannot mate with each other. There are a lot of reasons. Maybe the anatomy of the south tortoise is changed, so it's a physical constraint. Maybe the north tortoise, because of the condition of the north, has evolved to mate in July, while the south tortoise mates in September, so they will not mate together. Or maybe their gametes, their cells in general, will not be able to talk with each other anymore. So also if they could physically mate, their gametes will not fuse and produce a baby tortoise. Now that the two populations are reproductively isolated from one another, they are becoming two different species. This is the birth of two new species. It's important to notice that initially we had species A, our tortoise in the circular environment. Now we have two different species, both different from species A. Now we have species B and C. Maybe one of the two, maybe the species B, is more aesthetically similar to species A than the other, but they are both new species. Now, this was allopatric speciation. This is allopatric speciation, when a change in the environment divided an initial population, and after some time the two populations become two species. Now let's look at the second model for speciation. The first was allopatric, the second, this is sympatric, that it's another Latin word that stands for the same place. So this speciation will occur in the same place. It really means that the organisms, in this case the tortoise, could potentially meet each other. There is no environmental limitation. But let's say a group of tortoises like to eat some bushes, while another group of tortoises like to eat higher plants like some small tree. The group of tortoises that like to eat the bushes will be almost all the time all together and eating bushes. There is a higher probability that two tortoises that like bushes will mate together because they spend the majority of their time together. The same reasoning could be done with the group of tortoises that eat small tree. When some time is passed and bush tortoise and tree tortoise, after years of mating with each other, will have evolved separately, also if they lived in the same place, maybe if one day a bush tortoise meets a small tree tortoise, they will not recognize themselves as potential partner. You know, the kind of stuff, "Oh no, Jenny, I would rather prefer to die than marry a small tree tortoise." So this is a behavioral separation, but the results are the same. No genetic material is exchanged between the two populations, so same as before. Eventually, in some evolutionary time, that means from thousands to millions of years, these two populations will be considered two different species, species B and species C again. So that's it. You start from one species, you divide it physically or behaviorally, you wait some times, and boom, two species. You know, two become four, and some species goes extinct, and you are looking to the process that started from one organism 3.5 billion years ago and is gone till today, and has given us all the diversity of life. So there is an important topic I wanted to make a discussion about, and it is humans. Let me know, what do you think about the human condition today? I mean, we are behaviorally separated inside the human populations, and sometimes also physically. What do you think will happen? Let me know in the comments, and as usual, thanks for watching, and see you later.